Hi folks! Since we already covered the best Canadian dividend stocks in one of my previous videos, as well as the top 5 US tech stocks, I feel like now is a great time to talk about Canadian ETFs that every investor should consider adding to their investments portfolio for both safe and stable growth, especially if you are a beginner in the world of investing who doesn't feel comfortable dealing with individual stocks just yet. And even though I'm personally comfortable and prefer trading individual stocks and it worked well for me so far, I understand that every person has a different risk tolerance when it comes to asset allocation, and I am positive that balanced ETF should be a part of every investor's portfolio, as they have much lower expense ratios compared to actively managed funds, and they're great for both capital appreciation and dividends. Plus, you also get wider exposure in different fields, which makes it an ideal type of asset for a diversified portfolio. Personally, I have about 20% of my portfolio allocated to ETFs, and even though they don't usually deliver as lofty returns as individual stocks do, you will most likely beat the inflation while earning passive income on dividends, which is definitely better than having your money sitting and depreciating in your bank account. I've looked over some popular videos related to this topic and noticed that many Canadian finance bloggers suggest VEQT, which hasn't shown particularly great results last year, and even though it is a pretty good product, I didn't want to repeat what's been said before me and dedicated my time to analyze all popular products from BlackRock, Vanguard and BMO to find better solutions for you with significantly higher growth potential and great dividends as well. Besides, I also prepared one-size-fits-all option for those who don't want to track so many different products and would rather just relax and have a single ETF in their portfolio. For those lazy investors, yes. Let's start with the BMO ZCN ETF, which replicates the performance of the S&P 500 and TSX indexes and includes over 200 top-ranked Canadian stocks, representing approximately 95% of the Canadian equity market. I've decided to add ZCN as one of the best Canadian ETFs because of a few reasons. First, it has a solid dividend yield of 2.83%, which is great for an ETF, especially considering that it's been designed for investors looking for growth solutions. So you will most likely get a solid appreciation and most definitely beat the inflation. Last year, ZCN outperformed the market and showed 16% growth, while the much more popular VEQT has only shown 6% growth for the same period of time, while also offering only 1.5% dividend yield. The ZCN consists of the most liquid and traded Canadian equities, including all major Canadian banks such as RBC, TD and CIBC, as over 30% is allocated to the financial sector. Then we have natural resources companies like Enbridge and Pembina, insurance stocks like Sun Life and Manulife, IT and telecom companies like Shopify, Telus and Bell, and much more. The list is long and you can check it out yourself in detail on the BMO website, and I will attach the screenshot here right now. When it comes to risk assessment, the ZCN has a medium rating, but BMO still places it as a growth ETF. Another benefit is a tiny fee of 60 cents on every $1,000 invested, which is one of the lowest management fees out there for an ETF. To conclude, if you are a Canadian investor who wants to have major exposure in leading Canadian equities and a lot of room for capital appreciation with solid dividends, this product should be your #1 choice. The second product is an impressive choice for both dividend investing and capital appreciation. Vanguard VDY is not only showing great results when it comes to growth, as $10,000 invested in March last year would have netted you $13,000 as of March this year, but it also has one of the highest dividend yields out there at impressive 3.41%. Of course, you can say that there is an HDIVT that pays 8% in dividends, but keep in mind that it's a covered call ETF, and those have high management fees, as well as involve extremely high risks. And when the market are going through rough patches, that kind of ETF tend to sink the hardest, so eventually you end up losing much more money than you originally expected. So I recommend staying realistic and focusing on good products that provide both decent growth and great dividends within reasonable boundaries, without any crazy promises or whatever. Surprisingly, VDY showed the most impressive returns on a year-to-year basis with an amazing 26% growth last year and keeps on rising faster than the alternatives. And even during the crisis, VDY stands much better than other ETFs. So when it comes to asset appreciation and solid dividends, VDY should be definitely on your list. Now, I'd like to talk about my personal favorite that I have carried in my portfolio since 2020, just like a baby. VFV by Vanguard tracks S&P 500 index, and unlike my previous selections, this one is fully invested in over 500 US stocks, mostly large and mid-cap companies. When it comes to exposure, VFV has 28% of the fund allocated to IT, over 13% in healthcare, and the rest in financial and communication services, as well as in energy, real estate, and utilities. VFV consists of the biggest US companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, and so on, which means that when the market continues picking up the pace later this year, after the Russia-Ukraine war and the shock coming from rising interest rates, this ETF would grow substantially faster than the others. However, when the market tumbles, this ETF would take a serious hit as well, so I would say it's a riskier option compared to my previous selections. Could be a rough ride if the market tanks, so if you're looking for a more stable solution with lower risks, I would advise going with ZSN, the very first selection in this video. Another Canadian investor's favorite is XIC, which also looks a lot like my very first selection in terms of the holdings, which is the case with many ETFs. We can see that XIC has over 30% in the financial sector and 16% in energy, which is almost exactly the same as ZSN. And it also has a medium risk assessment and very low management fees of 0.05%. It's an option well trusted by Canadian investors with a low PB and PE ratio, which showed a great performance last year with 15.5% growth and 2.5% dividend yield. Now, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time, and I hope that this video helped you figure out the best ETF for your Canadian portfolio. And I hope to see you next week.